Hello and welcome to episode 2 of CORECAST, the Corepunk podcast. I'm your host, the creator called BOAST, and with me again tonight is Dvalin. That's DVALINDK on YouTube. His latest video is what it feels like to discover Corepunk before Q4. It's a very fun parody of all of our existences right now, and you should go check it out. Hello, Dvalin, and welcome back to CORECAST.
Hello, and again, thanks for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure. So before we get started tonight, I wanted to say thank you to all of you that have checked out the pilot episode, which is now at over 200 views. I really had no idea what to expect with this, and I'm really very happy with the support so far. That said, we're listening to you all and your suggestions, and I want to share that we have some new guests lined up for the next coming weeks. And tonight we will be discussing a couple topics provided by the community. So thanks for all of your input so far, and we hope you enjoy episode 2. Okay, so for episode 2 and the first topic of the night here on the CORECAST podcast, Dvalin, it's going to be raiding. This topic provided by Ash K. Lang. And it's a hot topic. I mean, they're all hot topics right now, let's be honest. But raiding is something that has been mentioned to a limited extent. It's something that pretty much every MMO has to a certain extent. They all do it in their own way. And I wouldn't expect anything different from Corepunk. And I think this is something that you are absolutely looking forward to. And I know that being in your guild, the statement of the guild is, let's be number one in the world. Let's get things done immediately and just be on the top of the list of the top raiders in the Corepunk community. So let's talk raiding. What do you got for me?
Yeah, definitely. My highlight of the guild I have for that I'm recruiting for right now is that I want to be the best, and I think it's funny to have this race against the world. That the main goal is that, well, let's try to be the first when the raid comes out, and whoosh, raiding. It's a big topic, and I really look forward to it. Like, my main concern about raiding is what is the perfect size of a raid group when you actually watch the game from top of the screen. You know, it's not like an RPG where you actually see from behind of the character. Now we're going to be top of the screen, and how many people is realistically going to be fit into the same room?
It's a very good point, and I think it's a great place to start because there's some great conversations going on the Discord right now about raiding and the different future players' experience with raiding in different MMOs. And there's so many ways it could be done. There's so many levels of size that you can add, not just on the size of the raid itself, how many checkpoints and boss fights and end bosses there are, but also the amount of players as well, as you're mentioning. So this is a great place to start. One of the MMOs that I mentioned in the Discord in relation to this, who I think does actually a pretty cool job of breaking up this raid content and serving it bite by bite and serving it in a way where it escalates in size is, again, Star Wars The Old Republic. And this game, sure enough, has a lot of faults to it. I'll be the first to admit that, but it's something that, again, is fresh in my game history, and it's something that I think does certain things very well as well. And one of them is raiding. And they have two sort of classes of raiding. They have one which is called flashpoints, which you do in a small group. This is you getting together with your group of friends and doing essentially what is a mini raid and being exposed to the different planets, the different enemies, the different kind of things that are going on in the game in these bite-sized, small raid-like experiences. And then you have operations, which are much bigger and they are for many more players, and they are much more sophisticated. They have so many more things you need to focus on in your individual classes and specs, and what to CC, what not to CC, what to pull, what not to pull, and of course the order of doing things, and what I am personally most excited about, which is just the overall sort of puzzle aspect of the raids themselves. And I love legit puzzles. And I think we're going to see some of those. I think it hinted at that with, all of the players kind of standing on little, floor switches that open the door. I mean, this is pretty basic, but, seeing puzzle aspects in there on one hand, I hope to see as well. But just figuring out how the raid works, I guess that's what I'm getting at, is such a huge part of it, right? And that's going to be the key to being server first, is figuring out the mechanics of the raid first, how it all works, and how to beat it as quickly as possible. So that said, and I feel like I'm going a bit beyond what I intended to say in the first place, but the point of that was that they have these bite-sized raids, and then they have these bigger raids which have a lot of players involved. And that's not going to work in this view as you're getting to, right?
When you say a lot, how many is that? Like 20, or are we talking 40?
No, not 40. And that's the thing, right? Because with other MMOs, you're going even bigger than that. But this is not going to be possible with the camera view that's presented in this game.
No, that's the problem here. I feel, well, that's probably an unpopular opinion, but I feel the games like this with a rating is probably something that fits perfectly into a 12-man raid size. Well, I mean, okay, go back in time in World of Warcraft and you had to find 40 people. That is like a thing I never hope we will ever see again, because managing a raid where you need to get 39 people in, and of course yourself, that's like crazy. I remember I was a hardcore raider back in vanilla in those days, and that was just insane how many people you actually had to involve. And if we just need 12 people today, that would be so easy. Okay, I know my guild is basically already up on 30, 40, 50 people, so we would of course already have to begin to prioritize people. But still, I feel like if it could be 12 people, it would be so much easier to find a group. But if it's also 20, I can also respect that.
Right, because it's not just about how many player characters you can fit on the screen. It's about, one, managing all those player characters in there as a group.
Yeah.
And also just being able to find that many players to play with at that point. It takes a lot of coordination to get 40 players together.
Yeah.
Speaking, I want to ask you, I'm going to get your opinions on this. What a couple of things about raids. What's the favorite raid you've ever run, if you can remember that off the top of your head? And why was it the favorite raid you've run? And with this game in particular, what do you expect, and maybe what are you looking for in the raids themselves? Like what do you hope it has? What makes a good experience for you when it comes to raiding?
Okay, so that one I can actually be 100% honest. Probably the best raid I've ever tried. Well, I didn't really raid in Destiny 1, but I actually raided in Destiny 2. And the first raid they released was called Leviathan or something. Leviathan.
A Leviathan.
Yeah, exactly. Did you try it?
Cool. No, you know what though, and I'm going to try not to ramble on too much because you're getting to a good point here, but I was actually going to bring up Destiny as some of my favorite rating, Destiny 1, because that's what I played through fully and all the rating. And then I was hesitant to do it because of just so much of the conversations going on about all these other game types that, or games, or like game genres that might not be relevant to the conversation. For some reason, I doubted that, but here you go, and you're bringing up Destiny 2, and it's brilliant because I think we sort of have some similar experiences in our gaming history, and this is another one of them. It's an FPS, but they do rating really, really well, and the experience is really amazing. So carry on, please.
Yeah, I mean, the difference with rating between Destiny and WoW, World of Warcraft is pretty much in Destiny, you actually have to think. Well, of course, you also have to do it in WoW, but it's just in Destiny 2, the rating I tried, Leviathan, in Destiny 2 was so hardcore. It was so postal. If just one person in the raid, he didn't do his task, we all failed.
Right.
If one person in a WoW raid he failed, then okay, he's probably just dying, and then maybe the 15 or 19 other people can handle it. But in this one, it was so extreme. It was like, actually, to be honest, we never completed it because it was so extreme. But we probably had the most fun ever in any raids.
Yeah.
And the raid side was only 6 people, so it was quite easy to find a group. I played with my dad and brother and some of their friends, so that was actually pretty cool group we had together. But just some of these puzzles, I never forget them, where we had to jump on stones, and if the dogs that was running up below the stones they saw us, then we will just die immediately. So it's just sneaky missions, and there was also one very reminding of American football, where you had to like run with the ball, and if you didn't run properly, you also would die. So it's just, again, as you said, puzzles, puzzle.
Yeah, and they were so good. They were so good in Destiny. This was one of the or some of the funnest rating experiences I've had, and it was because of that. It was because you had to do all these little intricate things to be successful, and you had to do them as a team. And you failed so many times, and that makes the reward that much more valuable, right? When it's a such a hard experience. It's such a bonding experience in the trenches together, fighting to be successful in this objective, and failing together so many times to where people consider like not finishing, and then when you finally do, it's just so rewarding because of that.
Yeah, yeah, and I remember one of the key points why I actually wanted to raid in Destiny 2. That was actually for getting the armor that could drop in there, so I could look like someone who did the raid.
Okay, this actually brings up another interesting point of rating, because as much as I loved the rating, I actually got really lucky, and I ended up getting like 3 drops in a row. And at the time of the original Destiny, this was pretty unheard of, at least with the people I played with. And, there was, I think, a time when I doubled up on a piece of gear when my friends still weren't getting their raid piece. So that was I guess, the negative part of it. And I think that's the whole other aspect of rating, and part of the discussion is that there's this reward aspect to it. You do it not just to be proud of yourself and your teammates, but there's normally something that you get out of it, right? And I think in Destiny, especially, you're doing this so that you can get some of the best gear in the game that the game has to offer.
Hmm.
And so if it's not done well, it doesn't always have that really rewarding feeling. So as far as rewards go, to segue into that part of the conversation, what makes a good reward system for you when it comes to running raids?
See, on that part, not because this has to be a podcast about Destiny, but I actually like the system they had in Destiny, where you could either do PvP to get the best gear, or you could either do the raiding. And also, I know Pishak, he has already stated that you can either do PvP in Corepunk, or you can do PvE to get the best gear. And for me, I totally love that. So the reason for why I wanted to mostly go into a raid is so I can get the unique skin or the unique armor transmog or whatever, because we know in Corepunk armors are not going to give stats. It's simply just a look. So I really hope innerly that when I go into a raid, defeat it, the last boss, then I unlock a full transmog set that I can use from that raid. And then of course the gear that can drop in there, the artifacts, that's of course nice. But actually what I most like is to be able to go around into the city and shine with my new transmog that looks like I just completed the raid.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a lot of peacocking around with your like you said, your transmog, your artifacts, or whatever it is that we end up getting as that sign of achievement. Because, as you just mentioned, gear in this case is unique. It's a cosmetic thing, which I think is a pretty cool thing, and I'm excited to see how this all plays out. One last comment on that is that from the FAQ, PVE is planned to have dungeons both for solo mode and groups of up to 4 people, randomly generated dungeons, and raids. So back to the beginning of this conversation, talking about bite size and progressing your way up to bigger raids. It sounds like it's going to have this type of thing where you can sort of dabble in it as a solo player, get your group of 4 players together, like we've seen in the trailer, running through sort of this dungeon crawler dungeon mode, and with randomly generated dungeons, which is also really cool. And then on top of that, raids as well. So it sounds like to me that there is going to be this progression from this bite-sized content up to this endgame content.
And that would be perfect. I think they're going with the same module that actually World of Warcraft is doing today. That you can do arena, you can do 5-man dungeon, or you can do raid, but you can actually get the same gear in all the 3 places. But of course, you have to do the hardcore part.
Right. I love it. I really do.
Hello, my name is Dvalin. Are you looking for a YouTuber or a content creator who are mostly talking about Corepunk and actually have met the Corepunk developers in real life and even on the Christmas day? Well, that's me. Go to youtube.com/dvalindk, DVALINDK. Again, youtube.com/dvalindk. I am doing a lot of content about Corepunk, but also about other MMORPG games and RPG games. So come and follow me and follow the journey through Corepunk the game itself. Thank you and have a nice life.
And welcome back to the CORECAST podcast. Now for topic 2, this was provided by Dragom, and he wanted us to discuss crafting and economy. Now, what does this say to you, Dvalin? And what do you hope for in this game if this is something that's on your mind already?
Okay, so if I start on the crafting topic, I hope crafting will be a part of the game that is necessary. I hope crafting will be able to do probably almost the same gear as raiding PvP in high end, so that crafting they don't feel left. Because some MMOs where crafting is like you can do crafting, but crafting is not necessary because you can get better gear for doing PvE content. And I appreciate that. Of course, crafting should not be able to make all the best gear, but if they just could get some, as they already have confirmed, that crafting can get some very random and rare recipes, so they can actually create some really, really strong gear, and they will be able to sell that to other players on auction house and earn bulk of it. And that would be super awesome. So crafters, if you ask me, I hate crafting, so I would never be a crafter, but I appreciate I really appreciate the people who wants to craft, and because I know persons are like a person like my dad, he loves crafting. That's like his main thing. He's always the guy who crafts and send me items every day in my mailbox, and I appreciate that because people think it's fun to craft. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I'm someone who wants to craft, but the problem I have in a lot of games is that there's no need for me to craft.
Mm-hmm.
I'm crafting because I want to feel the reward of completing the leveling of a certain crafting profession, or that I'm crafting because there's some gear in there I can use as sort of a vanity gear or something like that. There's never really been a system that I fully enjoyed, and I've really explored all of them that I've run across. I've crafted in every MMO that I played, and it really does come back to what you said, and that's there needs to be a need for it. I've even tried the crafting in Final Fantasy XIV, which is on the extreme side of things, where you have to be present and essentially hitting skill checks on a regular basis to craft, single items even. And then on the other side of things, where you can just slap a bunch of materials into a pot and stir it up, and out comes a bunch of pants. None of them have really been rewarding because, again, like you said, they weren't necessarily needed. But one system that I did play with that made you feel needed was in Star Wars Galaxies, and we spoke a little bit offline or online or off the podcast, if you will, about Star Wars Galaxies. And as I mentioned to you, this is a game that didn't have a lot of story or content in that direction. The story that was provided capped out before you even were max level, so that wasn't very helpful. But what the game did have was amazing systems, and the crafting system was one of these amazing systems, and it was very well thought out. And you could have a crafter that could make some really cool stuff, but you were reliant on other crafters as well to make that really cool stuff. And you had to work together with the community to where you had, you were making components for the stuff that I'm crafting, and then another guy's making components for the stuff that you're crafting. And this is one way that it made everyone relevant and made it necessary. And then the other aspect of that too was that there was professions like, for example, you can be a bounty hunter in Star Wars Galaxies, and you would actually pick up bounties on other players, and you would hunt actual players, which was another amazing feature in the game. But part of that whole mechanic was that you would go to a terminal, you would pick up a bounty on a player, and then it took 2 droids that you would need to use. You would have a seeker droid, which would you would throw out, and it would essentially tell you what planet the player was on. And then there was a second droid, which was a probe droid, and I may have those names reversed, but it doesn't matter. The second droid, once you got to the planet, you would throw out, and then it would find the player's location on the planet. And then you would go and hunt that player. And you couldn't do it without those droids. You wouldn't have any idea how to find the player in the game. And those droids were made by crafters. And those droids, I believe, were made with that same system, where I couldn't exactly make the full droid myself. I would need some components from you. For example. So it was this whole thing that feeds back into it. They also had a really cool system of player housing and all this crazy stuff. And within that housing, you would actually get vendors, like NPC vendors, that you would have as a crafter. And in your crafting tree, you could spend points into that tree and get more vendors. And then you could place those vendors in your house. And then people would actually travel to your house to shop at those vendors and buy your items from you. And what that created was, because in the house, you could drop any item in your inventory into the house and use this like house decoration tool to actually move it around in the environment and place it anywhere you wanted. So the community just went wild with creating these amazing homes and shops where they would put everything on display, all their massive achievements and raid tokens and all this kind of crazy stuff, decorate their house and then make it their shop where they would have their NPC vendors. And it's just like such a cool thing. But that was definitely the best crafting experience that I found in a game, because it did give value to it. It made it necessary. And I agree with you. This is something that really needs to, it needs to be in there to make it valuable. And for those of you wondering if we're ever going to disagree on anything, I think it's going to come at some point. But so far, we've clicked pretty hard on our experiences with games and what we like and that sort of thing. Although this one, you said you're not super into crafting, so it's good to get your perspective. But this is something that I really want to embrace. And I think that's always been an itch I've been trying to scratch in games. I've always wanted to just be a crafter and like have that be my thing. And I don't feel like I've ever been able to do that. Like I still have to be a warrior or something else that goes and swings an axe to get the stuff that I need to be crafting in the first place, which I feel doesn't always make sense.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard of MMOs coming in the future where you can actually be a crafter, but again, that's in the future. But I know what you mean. That could be cool, just having a character focusing on crafting. But mentioning another game, actually, did we talk about this game last time, Guild Wars 2?
Oh yeah, you said this is your number 2. This is up there in my top 3 as well.
Yeah, and this game here, I don't know if you experienced with the crafting in this game, but crafting in Guild Wars 2 was actually the way to get the best weapon in the game.
Yeah, the legendary, right?
Exactly.
Which I tried for years to get. I had a spreadsheet written with all the materials and everything I needed to collect, and I never did it.
Yep. Yeah, I'm actually right now looking on the full material list, and when I look at this, I'm like, okay, I'm never gonna do that.
Yeah. And so for you, what is this for you? I mean, this is this a good thing for you or a bad thing for you, I guess?
Well, for me, I feel personally that it's, I mean, it makes the crafter in a situation where he can actually craft this, that he probably have to use months on, and then he can sell it on auction house for 2,200 gold in Guild Wars. That is a lot. But it also, I feel like it's kind of weird that the crafter is actually the one who's going to be able to make the best weapon. So it doesn't matter if you go to a raid or do PvP, the crafter is always the one who gives the best weapon.
Right. Yeah. And so I had all of my characters working on it. They were all grinding for it. And one other aspect of that whole process is that there's one part of those materials that you can't get without dumping a bunch of materials into like a giant fountain and hoping you get something back. So there was like a massive RNG aspect to it that was really brutal. And that was also one of the reasons why I never finished, because you couldn't get these specific material pieces without grinding for a bunch of stuff and then throwing it in the toilet, essentially flushing the toilet and hoping like, a 4-leaf clover would come out. And that was really tough, but I tried. It did have some cool things to it. Like, for example, I don't know if this is an embarrassing fact about me or not, but I 100%ed the map 3 times in that game. So we mentioned this on the previous podcast, a previous episode, in that Guild Wars 2 was such an amazing game because it really rewards you for everything you do in the game. every little place on the map that you explore, you're going to come to a vista or come to a jumping puzzle or come to an area that helps you complete the map section 100%. And you're rewarded for it all. And when you have completed every single map of every single section in the game, you essentially 100% the map. So you have to do these like find these vistas where you dive off. You have to do all kinds of crazy things. And once you finish that, you get a reward for it. And the reward was one of these most rare pieces that you have to add. And you have to have one of them to go into this legendary weapon. So imagine that. Actually, I think you got multiple for completing, but imagine that. Like, to craft multiple legendary weapons, you had to complete the map 100% on multiple characters. And I did it because I was just completely obsessed with the game, and I really loved it, and I had fun running around, and it was just so fun for the game to say yes to you when you went and did stuff, because there's so many games where and I'm spoiled by that game, by the way. So I go and I play other games, and I'm like, oh, hey, what's around this corner? What's going to be off this way? And I go there and there's nothing. I'm like, okay, well, that's great. So yeah, you're absolutely right. An interesting vision, I guess, of crafting with Guild Wars 2. And yeah, you couldn't get that weapon anywhere else besides doing that. So one last thing to mention, also from the FAQ, in regards to crafting, which I thought was worth sharing, is they say the game is planned to include crafting, gathering, and social professions. With the crafting professions, a player will be able to craft equipment, artifacts, create lacking items, and strengthen their artifacts. The social professions will be aimed at interacting with players. For all types of professions, we plan to introduce a rating system that will allow you to become, for instance, the finest smith in our world. They continue to say, in our world, you'll be able to mine ore, wood, leather, and various tech items as well. And one more point to that, in our game, any character can craft. However, there's a talent branch available that can give a bonus to mining crafts. So if you want to go out and explore and gather things, then there will be a talent tree for that. And it sounds like you'll be able to collect some pretty cool stuff out there. And that you will be rewarded for it. And that they do hold crafters at a valuable level.
Yeah, and I think they mentioned, I'm pretty sure I saw Eugene or Pishak mentioning this, that there's going to be like a crafting thing, but it's going to be one of the socials one that is called Sheriff. So basically you are like hunting player killers and getting rewarded for it.
I love it. And this really, this is one of the reasons why I'm excited for this game, and why, we're here talking about it, or I'm here talking about it, is that there's all these little things that they hint to, like this, for example, that make me feel like they're thinking outside of the box when they mention these things. And so I'm excited to see what else they have in store.
Greetings, adventurer, and welcome to COREPunk, an MMORPG where you'll experience fog of war in a vast, seamless open world. Miles and miles of wilderness to get lost in. Discover a small camp in the middle of nowhere. Or a busy metropolis booming with life and activity. You are free to go wherever you want. Use public transport to reach remote locations fast and safe. Begin your journey by creating a hero. Each has its own unique role, abilities, and a set of fighting styles. Complete quests for NPCs who are too busy to do it themselves.
You're gonna need a better gear for that.
Kill monsters to earn gold. Shred them with your best move. Be careful, though. they get pretty crafty when fighting as a unit. Grow crops, chop wood, mine ore, trade goods for missing resources to craft the weapon you deserve. Suit up! It won't make you stronger, but you'll look absolutely fabulous. Choose a set of talents. Boost yourself with artifacts to become the ultimate war machine. Use Fog of War wisely to hunt down and ambush your enemies. Attack those who dared to take your farming spot. Then chill in a city, show off your loot, and find reckless companions to take on a challenge that no one else has the guts for.
We will come again. We'll come again until we're done. 'Cause only those who win, only those will stand their ground. No one leaves until we're done. When we stand as one, we won't leave till we're done. When we stand as one, we won't leave till we're done.
Sign up for beta at corepunk.com.
All right, and here we go with topic 3 of the night for the CORECAST podcast, episode 2. And this is a question for you, Dvalin, from me personally. And my question for you, knowing that the heroes that we're presented with are sort of based on archetypes, but knowing also that you can sort of build the character you want out of that, what is your dream class for Corepunk?
That one is actually quite easy.
Oh,
I want a druid.
okay.
I want a shapeshifter.
Great. Okay, do tell.
Well, if you take my dream, it would be a character that looks a bit like maybe having a bit Norse to it, or even a bit nature freaky. And then I would like if he had like some kind of a cat form. One of the specs should be a damage where he can go into. So one of the 3 specs should be where he goes into like a cat or jaguar or something like that, where he's like can go stealth and kill someone. Then the second one should be something like a rhino or maybe even a bear, very cliche with a bear, where he can like go into a tank form. And then the third one should not be any shapeshifting, but it should just be a healing spec where he just like casts with flower power.
Nature based.
Exactly. I know it's very cliche and sounds like the druid from Diablo, druid from WoW, but it's just my favorite one overall.
Well, I asked you what your dream class was, so I mean, it's your dream class. It's no one else's, so it can be whatever you like.
Exactly.
So
that would be so cool.
The druid, the hippie, nature's hippie, coming out with some shape-shifting forms, the big cat, the tanky bear, and then the flower power healing spec. I love it. And when you said like a nature creature, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking something like the Swamp Thing, or like a forest yeti, or something like this. But when you picture this dream class, sort of what is this like looking visually for you?
You mean like the character itself, or
Let's start with the color palette.
Okay. Well, most of the spells would probably be colored. The color scheme would probably be like green, maybe a little bit of purple in it also.
Ooh. And the character itself, the same?
Yeah, it will be. If you look at all the characters you can create on that list, I actually imagine the guy who's a green one. He looks like a green satyr. And I would first thought he was a druid for sure. But I asked Pishak in one of the FAQs, and he said to me, no druids.
Ah, so this is your chance to state your claim
Exactly.
and your desires.
Yeah, let me dream.
Well, you needed the opportunity. We gave it to you. So for me, mine is very, very different. And I think this is another area where we sort of diverge from. You are sort of bringing this like nature's prophet kind of hero to the table. And if I had a dream character, I would bring something that was much more like tech oriented, like an engineer type character. Back to Guild Wars 2, the engineer on there was my main and is one of my all-time favorite character classes that I've ever played. I really love the gadgets and the turrets and the flamethrowers and all these kind of things. And this character specifically in Guild Wars 2, it had kits, right? It didn't have this sort of standard just weapon damage that it output. It was all based on these kits that you could switch between. And I thought that was really unique and really fun to play. And you could have a really fun time switching back and forth through those and getting various combos out of it. So yeah, this is what I'm looking for. And I'm hoping this robot kind of character in the lineup is going to do that for me, and that he's sort of this like engineer that's creating little maybe like doppelganger versions of himself in various forms that turn into turrets and little robot creatures that go out and do his dirty work for him, something like that. But yeah, I really love the sort of like scoundrel kind of class, and so I'm hoping there will be something in there that's more of like a utility character in Corepunk.
I kind of think that your dream is getting close, but with the little dwarf.
Yeah, this guy.
He looked a bit like an engineer. I mean, one of the specs. I mean, we have only seen the sniper spec he has, where he has like a sniper and can shoot and make artillery. But he could look like someone who has an engineering spec.
Yeah, sure, we could see that, and I like it. That if I'm dabbling in some utility type character and then going out and mining and crafting, this could definitely fit that archetype as well with this character.
Yeah, okay, well then I can see we are very on that forefront, we are very different.
So a follow-up to that, also from the FAQ, in consideration to dream classes and the type of classes in the game, there was a question: will there be standard roles in the game like a tank, support, healer, and damage dealer? And it says, yes, in the game there will be standard archetypes, tank, support, healer, and damage dealer, as well as in-between variations. It's all up to the player's choice. Our game design allows for very flexible character customization for any playing style and role. A wide variety of builds is one of the key features of our games. This makes me feel like that my wishes may come true.
Yeah, and also the Q&A on not the, the FAQ on the website basically says very short: healer, tank, damage, and support. And the only game I have seen, the only MMO I have seen ever having a support role was Rift. If you remember that good old.
I do. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing, because it's a lot of people put healer and support into the same category, but separating like this definitely gives us a little tell that, because support can be things other than healing. It can be
buff.
Buffs, debuffs, CCs, this kind of stuff. Peelers. It's definitely up to some interpretation, and I'm definitely excited to see what support means, because that's kind of where this in-between variation or like utility characters falls in, I think, in most games, because it doesn't really fall into any of the other classes.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the classic tank, healer, damage, and now also support. So that's going to be really fun trying that out.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Definitely.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the CORECAST podcast. It's your host, BOAST, and I appreciate you being here. This is a passion project for me around a game that I have high hopes for, something that has blended my absolute favorite genres into what so far looks like could be an absolute masterpiece. And that's where this intensity and this excitement and this passion comes from me. I wanted to give back to the community creatively, and that's how this podcast was born. We're going to be putting it up on our YouTube channel and on our Spotify channel for your consumption. So please don't hesitate to subscribe, like, follow, and join us here at the CORECAST podcast. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the next topic. Welcome back, and this is topic 4. This is our risk section where we discuss aspects of the game that we either consider to be a risk or we see concerns of it being a risk. And again, this is just our opinions, and this goes back to our experience with games and what we've seen work and not work, and sometimes goes into what we hope for the game as well. Tonight, we will talk about customization, because immediately when you see the trailer, and it's a beautiful trailer full of beautiful environments and beautiful characters called heroes, you do notice, and I think most MMO players would notice, that there are what appear to be pre-created characters. And a lot of people sort of voice their concern that one of the greatest things about an MMORPG is the character creation aspect of it. A lot of these players have played games like Black Desert Online, where they have this insane character creator. And so there are expectations that every MMO needs to have this. But I don't know that that's necessarily true. And that's what we're going to discuss tonight in the risk section, topic 4. What do you think about that, Dvalin? How do you feel about character customization? And how do you think it will play out in this game?
Well, but this time I actually like it. I always feel overwhelmed that I have 100 choices. I need to choose between these 5 different races, and I have to choose if I want to be a male or female, and I have to choose if I need green hair or yellow hair. And it's always been so many choices, and I know a lot of people, they love it. But for once, I actually like that if I want to be this type of person, I have to look like this. I have to be maybe this little dwarf because I want this spec. Or I have to be this pink-haired lady that probably I can change the hair color on maybe. We have already seen now in the trailer this healer have actually met with both pink hair and brown hair, so that would probably be something like that. Small changes. But I don't have a problem with actually having pre-created characters for each, because then I feel like everyone is unique. I know, okay, this guy, he's the tall one with a big arms. Okay, I know that's the gunner. And oh, that's the little dwarf, that's the engineer. Then all of us suddenly get very unique. And I know exactly when I see him who he is. I don't have to click on his icon and see, oh, he's a shaman, he's a warrior. Now I can just tell it on the unique look, like in League of Legends, where you can see who are who.
Yeah, that's a unique look at it, and that's an interesting look at it. And you mentioned League of Legends at the end, and this game does have influences from MOBAs. And I think this hero creation or this hero picking at the beginning is definitely influenced by MOBAs and picking these iconic heroes that serve a particular purpose in this world. And I think it definitely ties them into the world, ties them into the lore, and really plays at these like stereotypes or archetypes of characters that we would find in these worlds. And on the one hand, you know, they say you could make a tank out of a fragile little character. But on the other hand, you're also presented with the type of race and hero character that would, you know, be the one that went out and sought out this profession or this type of combat or whatever that they decided to do and ended up with. And you know, I also feel very similarly to it. On one hand, I really do, you know, playing dress up dolls with my hero characters in games, and I really can get into that side of character creation and really do appreciate when games have really high level you know, levels of detail that you can experiment with and you can customize with. And sometimes I am disappointed when games have very limited customization possibilities, but those are also games that from the outside appear that they should have more customization possibilities. This doesn't have that appearance. This is very straightforward, saying this is what the heroes look like. These are your choices, but from there, you're able to decide the character that you want to build. And I think that's pretty cool. And this is one of those things that I really want to be patient with, and that I encourage others to be patient with, so that we do get to see the developer's vision of what this is. And I think this is something that, you know, the developers shouldn't compromise with. I think this is something that they should stay true to their vision with and see it through and present us with what they thought would be, you know, the coolest way to give us heroes in this game. And I really, you know, I want to be patient with this and see what they provide and what it really means when we get in there, because we really don't know, right? We've seen sort of a small layer of it in this trailer, and we've followed up with some Q&A, and there's some stuff on the FAQ that hint a little bit about what this means. But I really want to get in there and play around with it and see what it's like before I fully judge it. That said, I think it's actually pretty cool. Again, it shows me that they are thinking outside of the box and that they have a specific vision for this game, and that you know, that's what they're bringing us. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more about what that means at the start of the game, because that's such a special moment for all of us when we play these games, especially MMORPGs, is this moment where we fire up the game for the first time and we're presented with this opportunity of choice for the first time at the beginning of the game.
Well, it just brought something up now that we're talking about these characters and different classes. And they actually mentioned that each of the classes is going to have 3 specs. But Pishak said it's going to be hard for you to unlock all the 3 specs on one character. And I'm sorry, but it actually makes me a bit afraid. Because what does that mean? Does that mean that I probably have to maybe enjoy 2 specs, and if I want a third one, I have to do the Guild Wars 2 legendary weapon grind? or what does it mean that Pishak here tells me that, well, you can have all 3 specs, but it's going to be a journey?
Yeah.
It's like,
I think it depends on what it's tied to, right? Like, is unlocking the specs just strictly tied to XP? And is it harder to earn those because the storyline takes you only through maybe 1 or 1.5 or 2 of those trees, and then the rest of it you're grinding out that extra XP? But then you could potentially earn that through PvP or raiding and things like this. So I think there's got to be something more to it than it just being XP based on how you unlock this stuff.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds. I mean, the way you explain it, it sounds a bit like Albion Online,
Okay.
where you have to just grind. And when you finally finish with the game, you basically have unlocked tier 8 of a lot of things. But then if you want the other parts, you would have to regrind again.
Right. And if it's just XP based and the XP is tied to the content in the game, then that could be tough. But maybe it's that you need to get a specific token, for lack of a better name, that will allow you to purchase this second or third, tier of abilities.
Yeah.
Or I guess tier is not the right word because this is making it sound like it's, more powerful than the previous ones. But yeah, maybe there is some sort of unlock mechanism, and to earn that unlock for the second or third is a lot harder than just, starting. Because they do mention that it would almost be easier to start a new character, right?
Yeah, and I don't hope they are forcing me to have 2 of the same character just for having the different specs. I would like to have the same character with all the 3 specs, but I don't mind that I have to play the game for 100 hours to actually be, 100 hours maybe a big extreme, but maybe 20 hours or 30 hours of the same character for unlocking all the 3 specs. Because if I just can enjoy the game like Guild Wars 2, where I can do whatever I want, but then at the same time get experience points, that's fine with me. I don't mind that. But yeah, I can't really see any other options.
Yeah, I think this one's going to come down to how it's presented and how they're unlocked. And I think that's another conversation when we figure that out, because up until then, it's just speculating on how it could work. And I don't think that's going to get us anywhere with that. But
no,
as far as the customization goes, there's definitely some of these faces or icons or avatars that are definitely speaking to me. And I can't wait to go through there in that first experience and click through them all and see what they all look like. Because the ones we've seen so far are really cool. They're really cool. The art is really cool. This orc that's there with his armor and his goggles. I'm a sucker for goggles, because this has this like cyberpunk, steampunk kind of engineer, industrial feeling for me. And I don't know, there's just something about it I think is really cool. And seeing him, and he just looks like such a badass. And then this more sort of honorable knight type character is also very iconic and very cool looking. And then this it's a dual wielding gunner essentially, right? So a damage dealer, I guess, at the core.
Girl.
Yeah, Bomber Girl.
Yeah, and Pishak, he just randomly threw out on Discord that she's actually going to have a healing spec.
Okay. See, this is cool stuff. And I'm definitely a fan of this right now as it's presented. I'm not super worried about having these archetypes to choose from, because I think it's going to be more about the game and the gameplay and the options and the things that we get to do in there and the stories and the twists and turns that they take us through. I think it's going to be more about that. I think it's going to be less about creating this iconic character that you either create after yourself or some weird like anime girl that you're recreating in the world.
Yeah.
Not that I'm against that. I think everyone should create whatever character they want. But I'm excited to see how this plays out, this one as well.
Yeah, definitely.
That's been the Risk conversation on the CORECAST podcast, episode 2. Dvalin, it's been an absolute pleasure once again.
Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. Welcome back. And I'm excited to continue these conversations. But as I mentioned before, we have lined up a couple other guests as well for the upcoming weeks. And I think that will be cool to add some diversity to the conversations and maybe some people that don't share such strong similar interests as I think we're learning that we do. And I'm definitely excited for that. I'm excited to hear some other voices, because this is the interesting thing about the internet and, you know, existing on something like Discord, is that if it weren't for the YouTube videos that you create, I wouldn't know what your voice sounded like until I talk to you, right? So it's the same for the rest of these guys and girls that will be potentially on the show in the future. Having conversations on Discord is one thing. Having conversations like this is completely different. So that's a exciting thing in itself as well. And also, you know, having some awesome love from Eugene, and you know, getting some love on the YouTube there from him, and some conversation about some of those guys being on the show. This is also something I really look forward to, and we will work into the future as well. But in the meantime, it's been the Dvalin and BOAST show, and it's been great. I've really enjoyed this, and I can't wait to continue these. We will also take more topic suggestions, more guest suggestions, anything that you guys want to contribute to the show. We're definitely open and welcome to it, so please keep it coming. And Dvalin, do you have anything to say to your adoring fans out there before we go?
Just a quick comment. Also, I should set that with other voices, because people can definitely hear that we are fans of this game. So we are very pleased about it. And of course, it would be fun to hear a person who's actually very skeptic.
Absolutely.
Just to hear why is he skeptic, and what do he actually afraid, or she afraid.
Absolutely. The entire show is a risk conversation.
Exactly. You never know what they're going to break out.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. This is a good point. And yeah, getting some other opinions and some conversations in the other direction, yeah, will be definitely very interesting. And I look forward to it.
Yeah. Also, I would just say, yeah, really thanks again for having me on here, and thanks to everyone who's listening. And it was a pleasure again being here.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure having you. That's DVALINDK on YouTube. He's creating COREPunk content and other MMO and MMORPG and RPG content. This is a redundant way to say it, but he's got all the content there when it comes to MMO, MMORPG, and RPGs, including the latest Lord of the Rings Online revisit.
Yeah.
Which I had to mention because watching you play the lute on there was an enjoyable experience in itself. And I can't wait for your next video, where I believe you are going to be bringing real world music in there and showing it off for us. So
definitely
good times over on the Dvalin channel. Go check them out, drop a sub, and click the bell so that you get notifications, and join the community. We are also on Discord. There's a CORECAST Discord, which you can find in the description. There is a COREPunk Discord, which I will also put in the description, and then Dvalin's Discord as well, if he's cool with that.
Yep.
We are chatting in there pretty much every day, and we are building out a little guild in there. Not so little anymore, but building out a guild in there, which with the lead of Dvalin, we hope to take to multiple world firsts and just be a force to be reckoned with. So if you want to hook up with us in there, and jump into the game with us when it's playable, please check us out there. This is BOAST, and I've been here with Dvalin. Shout out to Michael for the audio production. And I don't really know how to end it anymore. It's been an interesting week. It's been a week of a lot of work, a lot of conversation around the game, and we're finally here talking about it in person. So with that said, I bid you all a good night, and I thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you in episode 3 of CORECAST, the Corepunk podcast. Good night.